of talking to do before our program formally begins, and that will give people a time. It'll give some time for the Jews to get here. So I want to welcome everyone and thank you for coming to this concert of local talent. All of the, or almost all, I think, of the cantors and cantorial soloists in Tucson. I'm Marjorie Hochberg, the cantorial soloist at Temple Emanu-El. And I wanted to let you know that the concerts are made possible by the Ian Kalman Legacy Fund. So continuing in the legacy of his grandmother, mother, and uncles, Ian Kalman embraced his Judaism through ritual observance, art, music, and philanthropy. In his work as an award-winning salesman and as a fundraising professional for the United Jewish Appeal, National Jewish Hospital, and the City of Hope, he understood that relationships are the key to success. To those relationships, he brought humor, kindness, and the understanding that as humans, we need to take care of one another. Sharing his love of Judaism, music, and ritual, he gifted his time, talent, and treasures to young people who might appreciate them. A man full of enthusiasm, he took great pleasure in Greek dancing. He practiced random acts of kindness year-round. He cared deeply about giving back to his community. His legacy of Jewish philanthropy lives on through the Ian Kalman Legacy Fund. So we're so grateful to Ian and to the Jewish Foundation for helping to make these concerts reality. And I'm so grateful for my friends and colleagues for agreeing to be a part of it. Our evening begins with Erev cantor Emanu-El, who will lead Havdalah.
Hi, I'm Emanu-El, Erev cantor, soon to be cantor at Congregation Mekor Chaim. Hine el Yeshuati avtach v'lo echad, ki aziv zimrat Yadonai v'yehi li Yeshua, v'shavtem mein bisason mimaynei ha-Yeshua, l'Adonai ha-Yeshua lamcha v'chatecha sela, Adonai tzvot imanu miskav lanu Elohei Yaakov sela, Adonai tzvot asher yadam poteach bach. Adonai hu Yeshua melech yaneinu yam korenu. LaYehudim hayatorah v'simcha v'son v'yikor kein tilanu. Kos Yeshua tesa uv'shem Adonai ekra. Lai lai la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai lai. Lai lai la 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 lai lai la la lai la la lai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen borei peri hagafen la la lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai lai la la lai la la lai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim borei minei v'samim la la lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai lai la la lai la la lai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei me'orei ha'esh borei me'orei ha'esh la la lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai lai la la lai la la lai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lechol ben or lechol shech ben Yisrael lamim ben yom hashvi'i l'shem בששת ימי המעשה, ברוך אתה אדוני, המבדיל בין קודש לחול, המבדיל בין קודש לחול. אליהו הנביא, אליהו התשבי, אליהו, אליהו, אליהו הגלעדי, במהרה בימינו יבוא אלינו, עם משיח בן דוד, עם משיח בן דוד. מרים הנביאה, עוז וזמרה בידה, מרים תרקוד איתנו, להגדיל זמרת עולם. מרים תרקוד איתנו, לתקן את העולם. במהרה בימינו היטיבנו אל מי הישועה. המבדיל בין קודש לחול, הטוטנו ימחול. זרענו וכספנו ירבה כחול, וככוכבים בלילה. שבוע טוב, 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 שבוע טוב.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Emily. That was lovely. And we all got to warm up with your beautiful Havdalah. You know, I was born, or not born, but I was raised in Seattle, Washington, which has a large Sephardic community. And many of my friends growing up were from a Sephardic background. But I've learned more about them and more about Sephardic culture since I left. As it happens in Seattle, many of the first immigrants to that area came from Rhodes. And many of the Sephardim of that period, sort of the beginning of the 20th century, came from Greece, came from Rhodes, and tended to go to places like Seattle that were port cities because they were fishermen. So if you were ever in the Pike Place Market and you were in the store where they threw the salmon, those are Sephardic Jews. That's one of their stores. And so there was a lot of tension in the early days because the Ashkenazim didn't know what to make of the Sephardim. They wore different clothes, and they didn't speak Yiddish, and they just seemed so different. And in those early days, intermarriage was marrying out of your group. If you were Ashkenazi and you married someone Sephardi, that was intermarriage. And it was, verboten. And they were, I think, not terribly nice to each other. And they had these kind of snide nicknames for each other. I don't know if they sell mazola vegetable oil in this part of the world. I don't remember if I've seen it. But the Ashkenazim would call the Sephardi mazolas because they cooked with oil. And the Sephardim would call the Ashkenazim schmaltzers because they cooked with chicken fat. So I thought tonight it would be fun to sing some songs that had to do with holidays, some Sephardic melodies for holidays. So one of my favorites is a Sephardic version, a Ladino version of Who Knows One, Echad Mi Yodea. And I want to mention for those of us that know Spanish that some of the spelling of words is a little bit different in Ladino than it is in standard Spanish. Also, an interesting thing is that in Ladino, the word for God is Dio and not Dios. because in Spanish, just like English, S can indicate a plural, and the Sephardic Jews wanted to make it absolutely clear that there is only one God. So they dropped the S off of Dios. So this is quien supiese y entendiese, and it's pretty repetitive. So if you know it or if you pick it up, please sing. Quien supiese y entendiese, alabar a Dios, creense cuál es el uno. Uno es el Creador, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shema. Quien supiese y entendiese, alabar a Dios, creense cuáles son los dos. Dos Moshe y Aarón, uno es el Creador, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shema. Quien supiese y entendiese, alabar a Dios, creense cuáles son los tres. Tres padres nuestros son, dos Moshe y Aarón, uno es el Creador, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shema. Quien supiese y entendiese, alabar a Dios, creense cuáles son los cuatro. Cuatro madres de Israel, tres padres nuestros son, dos Moshe y Aarón, uno es el Creador, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shema. Quien supiese y entendiese, alabar a Dios, creense cuáles son los cinco libros de la ley, cuatro madres de Israel, tres padres nuestros son, dos Moshe y Aarón, uno es el Creador, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shema, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shema.
Spanish is probably the third language I learned. When you grow up in Tucson, Arizona, you really can't help it. But Hebrew was probably it and English I learned at the same time in terms of songs. I was learning the Itsy Bitsy Spider at the same time as I was learning Rod Halila. And when I learned that Spanish had a Jewish component to a Jewish version of it, I just fell in love with it. And again, the way Marjorie mentioned, the words are different, but it's 15th century Spanish because that's when the Jews were in Spain. And so the Spanish that they spoke, it's like when my mother used to speak Castilian Spanish, I would laugh at her. I go, Mom, it's not Elia, it's ella, but it's different. So I would like to sing a song that is one of my favorites. It's called Scalerica de Oro, and it means the golden ladder. And it's the ladder that the bride will climb up to take her wedding vows. It's gold and ivory. And we all come to see this, and may they have joy, and may they prosper, and may they have mucha bien, and may they have much good. And then it goes on to say, but the bride doesn't have any money, but they'll still have good fortune. The bride doesn't have any wealth, but they'll still have good luck. So, Scalerica de Oro. Scalerica de oro de marfil, para que suba la novia a dar kiddushim. You can clap with me. Venimos a ver, venimos a ver, y gocen y logren, tengan mucha bien. Venimos a ver, venimos a ver, y gocen y logren, y tengan mucha bien. La novia no tiene dinero, la nova no tiene dinero, que mos tengan más al bueno, busquemos tenga un más alto. Venimos a ver y gocen y logren, tengan mucho bien. Venimos a ver y gocen y logren y tengan mucho bien.
Hi, I am Sarah Bolt. I am a second year cantorial student at the Academy of Jewish Religion, California, and I am cantorial soloist at the Institute for Judaic Services at Saddlebrook and also at Congregation Or Hadash. Yo me enamoré de un aire is a Ladino romanza, a love song. A young man falls in love at night, and at the end of the song he says, "If ever I fall in love again, I'll do it in daylight." Io me enamoré de un aire. De un aire de una mujer muy hermosa, linda de mi corazón. Yo me enamoré de un aire. Linda de mi corazón, linda de mi corazón. Tra la 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 la. Tra la 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 la. Linda de mi corazón, linda de mi corazón. Yo me enamoré de una noche. El luna ya me engañó. Si esto era de día, yo notaba amor. Si otra vez yo me enamoro, sea de día con sol, sea de día con sol. Tra la 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 la. Tra la 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 la. Sea de día con sol, sea de día con sol.
Yasher Koach, Sarah, that was lovely. My name is Nicole Chorney. I am the cantorial soloist and education and youth director at Anshe Israel. And I want to thank Marjorie for bringing us all together to be able to sing together like this. It's really lovely, and I love hearing all of these pieces. So we're going to move away from Ladino just for a moment and do a Hebrew piece. I promise we'll get back to Ladino right after. So this is Yom Ze Yisrael, a Shabbat piyut or poem, and it has many, many different melodies. This melody is a Sephardic melody that originates in Morocco. And the text is, Yom Zeh Yisrael, Shabbat is a day of light and joy, a day of rest to the people of Israel. Yom Zeh Yisrael, Ora v'simcha. Yom Zeh Yisrael, Ora v'simcha. Ora v'simcha, Ora v'simcha, Shabbat menucha. Ora v'simcha, Shabbat menucha. Tzivit ha'pikudim b'ma'amar har Sinai. Shabbat u'moadim lishmor bechol shanai. Laruch lefanai maset farucha, Shabbat menucha. Laruch lefanai maset farucha, Shabbat menucha. Yom Zeh Yisrael, Ora v'simcha. Yom Zeh Yisrael, Ora v'simcha. Ora v'simcha, Shabbat menucha. Ora v'simcha, Shabbat menucha. Tzivit ha'pikudim b'ma'amar har Sinai. Shabbat u'moadim lishmor bechol shanai. Laruch lefanai maset farucha, Shabbat menucha. Laruch lefanai maset farucha, Shabbat menucha.
Oh, that was so much fun. I love that melody. Thank you, Nicole. Well, the next song I'd like to sing is a song about Purim called Coplas de Purim. There are many versions of this song and some different melodies I've heard as well. So I just picked a few verses that for which I could find translations or for which I could translate, and also verses that weren't too gory. Some of them, it's Purim. They can be kind of grim. Okay. And the chorus goes, Vivas tu, viva yo, vivan todos los judíos, vivan la reina Esther que tanto placer nos dio. So I'll sing it again, and I hope that you'll join me. Vivas tu, viva yo, vivan todos los judíos, viva la reina Esther que tanto placer nos dio. Esta noche de Purim no duermen los Ashurim, así en a las jugadas balas desposadas. Vivas tú, viva yo, vivan todos los judíos, vivan la reina Esther que tanto placer nos dio. Ampárate con tus manos, aproveis muestros en manos, a turcos y a cristianos, aunque no nos puedan ver. Vivas tú, viva yo, vivan todos los judíos, viva la reina Esther que tanto placer nos dio. Y los novios y las novias envíen dulces y rosas y joyas, algunas cosas que les quedan al deber. Vivas tú, viva yo, vivan todos los judíos, viva la reina Esther que tanto placer nos dio. Vivas tú, viva yo, vivan todos los judíos, viva la reina Esther que tanto placer nos dio.
For those of you who joined us last week for our concert with Sarah Aroeste, you heard that many Ladino songs tell a story, and they can have many, many verses. This next song is no exception. It tells a particularly poignant story about a young mother whose caballero is going away, perhaps to war, and leaving her alone with her young children. When I read the lyrics, I am reminded of how the Jews in Spain must have felt at the end of the 15th century, when they were forced to either embrace Catholicism or leave what had been their homeland for hundreds of years. They must have felt that God had abandoned them. In the final verse of the song, the husband says, "If I don't come back, You'll take another man who looks like me and dress him in my clothes. Porque lloras, blanca niña, porque lloras, blanca flor, lloro por vos, caballero, que vos allí me dejas, niña y muchacha, chica y de poca edad. Tengo niños chiquiticos, lloran y demandan pan. Si demandan a su padre, ¿qué respuesta les va a dar? Metió la mano en el pecho, 100 doblones le fue a dar. Vos esperarás a los 7, sino a los 8 casas. Tomaréis un manchevico que parezca tal y cual.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm going to ask your indulgence. Every once in a while, you can be in the happiest time. And if you think of a Jewish wedding, when you have a wedding and then at the end of it, they break the glass to bring us back down to earth, to let us know that life isn't always perfect, but the bad times make us appreciate the good times. Right now, my family and I are going through a little bit of a hard time, so I'd like to ask your indulgence and let me do a prayer for healing. If you know it, please sing with me. Refaenu Adonai v'nei Rapha, Hoshieni v'ni v'ashea, El karov lechol korav, ach karov l'regav yishov. We pray for healing of the body. We pray for healing of the soul, for strength of flesh and mind and spirit. We pray to once again behold, Hail Narifana. Oh, please heal us now. Refuat hanefesh urefuat haguf, refuat shelema. Hail Narifana. Oh, please heal us now. Refuat hanefesh urefuat haguf, refuat shelema. Heal us now. הושיע את עמך, וברך את נחלתך, וראם ונעשם עד העולם. מי שברך אבותינו, מי שברך אמותינו, אנא אדוני הושיענה. We pray for healing of our people. We pray for healing of the land and peace for every race and nation, every child, every woman, every man. Rifana. Oh, please heal us now. Refuat nefesh, urefuat haguf, refuat shalema. Heal us now. Heal us now. Heal us now.
Yasher koach. Thank you, Janice. So the next piece is Una Noche a Lunar, and it's by Flori Jagoda, who was one of the most well-known keepers of Sephardic and Ladino music. She was a singer, a composer, a guitarist, and a teacher of Sephardic music around the world. And you probably know her from her Hanukkah piece, Una candelica, dos candelica. So you probably have heard that one before. And she actually just passed away about 3 months ago at the age of 97. And this next piece she actually brought with her from her home, her hometown of Sarajevo, with the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And in the text, a young girl wanders along the beach, staring out at the sea, searching in vain for the ship that will bring back her young man who has gone to war, because she has dreamed that the war is over, and it must be so. Una noche al lunar, yo salí a caminar, caminando y buscando donde se topa la mar, caminando y buscando donde se topa la mar. Los ojos mis se abufaron de tanto mirar a la mar. Vapores ya van y vienen, letras para mí no hay. Vapores ya van y vienen, letras para mí no hay. Letras alegres recibiremos y las caras nos veremos. En un nido dormiremos, presto nos ayuntaremos. En un nido dormiremos, presto nos ayuntaremos. Madre mía, mi madre, un sueño me soñaba, un sueño me soñaba, que la guerra se escapaba. Un sueño me soñaba, que la guerra se escapaba.
That was lovely, Nicole. We are going to switch things up again a little bit. I have for you a traditional Iraqi melody to a popular Shabbat table song. This Aramaic text was written in the 16th century and praises God in grandiose language, ending with a prayer to redeem Israel and restore Jerusalem, the city of beauty. Yari olam be'almaya antum laka melech machaya. Yari olam be'almaya antum laka melech machaya.
Now I'm unmuted. That was beautiful, Sarah. Thank you so much. Well, a lot of the songs that we have heard and sung this evening have been traditional songs, traditional folk songs, traditional holiday songs, or Shabbat songs. But there's also music that's been composed more recently in Ladino. One of the things that we learned from Sarah Aroeste last week was how the Holocaust affected Jews in Greece and Macedonia. And she told us, and this was new information for me, that in those areas, the highest percentage of Jews were killed. So not the highest number, but the highest percentage. So I think in Macedonia, it was something like 94%. In Greece, it was 98%. I might have those numbers reversed. But regardless, it was an extremely high number. And what I'd like to sing for you is the Ladino version of Hatikva that was apparently written at the time that Israel was a state, and really captures, I think, the feeling of suffering, and also a feeling of celebration that Jews finally have a homeland, finally have their own state. It's called Fiestaremos. Let us celebrate. Fiestaremos juntos gloriosos el día de hoy con gozo. Día alegre es nombrado con los 7 judíos es membrado. Este día de nuestra alegría nos recuerda la mancilla de ver a los judíos sufrieron, a la fin salvación ya tuvieron. 2000 años de tan desgracia, sin poder reposar y sin sueño, arrastrando 1001 lugar, sin tener un hogar para reposar. Alzaremos la bandera por amor de nuestra tierra, con sudor de judíos arrufiada, con rosas y flores sembrada, con sudor de judíos arrufiada, con rosas y flores sembrada.
Thank you, Marjorie. It's wonderful hearing that. I've never heard it that way before. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Marjorie for organizing this concert and giving us the chance to be together and share our songs. And we really appreciate the opportunity. I'd like to do my last song, and it's probably the first Ladino song I ever learned, Cuando el Rey Nimrod. And it's one of those songs that you hear and you hear and you hear and you hear, and you take the words for granted, and then you actually listen to the words. And it's when King Nimrod went out and looked over the Jewish quarter, he saw the star in the sky that told him that Abraham, our father, was born. And of course, when I heard this, I was thinking, oh, it's a takeoff on the Jesus story. And my son, who was 8 years old at the time and heard me sing it, said, Mom, that couldn't have happened. And I said, why, honey? I was really curious. He said, because before Abraham, there was no Jewish quarter. And it took an 8-year-old to point out something to me that I had just taken for granted, that, whatever the song said was true. Like whatever the internet says, it's got to be true. So this is Cuando el Rey Nimrod. And the chorus is Abraham Avinu, Abraham our father, dear father, beneficent father, light of Israel. Cuando el rey Nimrod algo salía, miraba en el cielo y en la estrella, vida una luz santa en la judería, que había de nacer Abraham Avinu. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Saludemos al compadre y también al Goel, que por su zehut nos venga el Goel y rima a todo Israel. Cierto lo haremos al verdadero de Israel. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel.
Yasher koach. Beautiful. I love that one. All right, so we are going to end with a lullaby as we move into the rest of our week, trying to take some of that peace that we felt during Shabbat along with us. So I've enjoyed singing this to my son in the evenings before we sing Shema, and he wants me to sing it to him every night these days. So although I missed bedtime this evening, I sang it to him before I left. So, and the text is, sleep, sleep, dorme, dorme, mother's little boy, free from worry and pain. Listen, joy, to your mother's words, the words of Shema Yisrael. Dorme, dorme, hijo de madre. Dorme, dorme, sin ansia y dolor. Dorme, dorme, sin ansia y dolor. Sienti gioia, palavras de tu madre, las palabras de Shema Israel, las palabras de Shema Israel. Dorme, dorme, hijo de madre, con hermosura de Shema Israel, con hermosura de Shema Israel.
Well, thank you, Nicole. What a lovely way to end our evening. And thank you, everyone. Emily, Janice, Sarah, and Nicole for participating in the concert this evening. So, Sydney, why don't you put us on gallery view, and that will give everyone a chance to applaud.
Sure.
So you can unmute
Thank you,
us.
I was going to
guys.
say,
Thank
mute
you
applause
all.
is so satisfying.
Yes,
So,
you can unmute us.
so great.
Thank you, everybody.
What
Yeah,
gorgeous
definitely.
voices we have in this city.
I was going to say
No,
girl
thank
power.
you.
Girl
Thank you
power.
so much. Thank you so much.
It
Yeah.
was
Very,
very
very
beautiful.
lovely. Very, very lovely all.
And thank you so much.